To the west, a temple once belonging to the people of Dara was now a place to purchase and defile female slaves. The area around it had been purposely turned to slums by the occupying people of Pembroke. This sanctuary for the unruly welcomed those with an evil nature and a vile disposition. A room had been rented by Kisu and his jolly mercenary group, who celebrated the successful killing of Pembroke's king. A hazy transparent glowing fungus had dimly lit the huge room as the team of assassins aside from Kisu were drinking with vigor. Gumi and Nevin followed their preconditioned reenactment of an old married couple. This is some good liquor. Still I can't believe that Artio left us to try out this brother's women. I hope his dick falls off, Nevin said, laughing. This place smells like piss. Guess that was a turn on for that animal, Gumi said, her cheeks rosy from the spirits she had been drinking. A short man named Parley with raccoon eyes, was dressed in a cheap suit. The quarter of a man took a sip of his intoxicant. I thought I would have to console the big guy about how his people's holy land had been turned into a whorehouse, but apparently, he doesn't mind, said Parley. The large door to the room burst open, a naked giant came in screaming. Gumi gave a perverted smile as her eyes looked at the elephant in the room. The prostitute stole my clothes. Do you know how much those clothes cost me? Parley, please help me find them, please. Parley shrugged with disinterest and took another sip of liquor. Your clothes and anything on 'em is gone. Just like it's our job to kill people, this is what these girls do. Now get in here and cover up before Gumi's drool covers the table, said Parley. Gumi wiped her mouth with her forearm. I wasn't drooling, I was just, At a loss for words, Gumi squirmed and looked to Nevin with fluttering eyes to get her out of the situation. Gumi had a habit of relying on Nevin, knowing he had a crush on her but was too shy to confess, so whenever the other men in the group would try something, he would become her guard dog. Nevin, who had more anger in his body than goodwill and who had been thrusting a spear through her in his mind out of jealousy only a second ago, was given a perfect chance to counterattack. Though he did understand she was a woman and had needs too, particularly at her age, he thought he would soften the blow by just stating the facts. You were looking at him, you whore, Nevin oinked, with jealousy seething in his throat. Gumi shot Nevin a look as to say, why didn't you do as I wanted? But she also knew that her only option was to now tell the truth. It's not like that, it's just if the sun sets in front of you. It would be a shame not to take a second to appreciate it, said Gumi, crossing both her arms and legs. Her cheeks puffed in a pout. Kisu heard Gumi's words, from the sunset, darkness arrived, it's time. Those words slipped out from between Kisu's teeth as if being said by something entirely inhuman. The cold, lifeless, rotting words chilled the room with an eerie feeling. Artio, who was working two shirts around his waist, noticed something that turned him as pale as a shut-in, an impossible sight transpiring. Bloodied brush strokes one by one laid themselves out on the face of the door he had just entered. His bewildered expression drew the attention of the room to the oddity. An evil presence had welcomed itself amongst killers. A fox's smile creeped across Kisu's face because this demonic summoning circle was what he had been waiting for. Sarmiel, I welcome you, we have killed the king as your will has dictated. You shall take the throne and your name shall be raised up on high. For your glory, my lord, I offer you my service, let my hands be your hands, your feet my feet, I give this vessel to you, the great exalted one, command me for you are my god, said Kisu. The disgusting symbol bubbled forth blood. The glistening liquid dripped, then oozed, and poured onto the wooden boards below it amassed into a large puddle. The pool of crimson jumped up towards the ceiling, which would make one think it was to be splattered out across the room, but that dreadful substance had surely been summoned with words of power, and natural laws did not apply to it. So instead of soiling the room, the blood had taken the shape of a rose, and then blossoming, it manifested itself as an intensely red dress worn around a young lady in her 20s. Her face was caked in powder, completely masking her eyebrows, her bright bloodied lips and peach-covered cheeks accented that chalk. Good evening, I am Mary Rose, the demon of yearning. It is a pleasure to be speaking to my contractor's playthings. She giggled ominously. Kisu gave an endearing bow to the lovely girl. So you're one of the demons my teacher was able to summon. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Mary Rose cackled. A human that speaks to me without a quivering voice, wonderful, how wonderful. My demonic power forces fear into any living thing around me, yet your legs do not tremble. I see you have quite the remarkable resolve. She licked her cherry-colored lips. Tell me, human, what is your name? I am Kisu Azel, leader of the assassins Amarog, replied Kisu. The beautiful monster chortled and moaned. I see you're the one Samiel told me about. Well, we both have been enchanted by that man, haven't we, said the entity. Mary Rose looked over at the other members who had either already grabbed a weapon or were ready to. Beads of sweat rolled down their faces. This made her lips pull toward her ears. However, she covered her mouth so as not to show her sadistic smile. I see, and these oozing delicious fearful spirits are your tools, she asked. Yes, these are my trusted men that would join me in hell if I should ask, said Kisu. Well, when the opportunity arises, I'll take you there myself. She giggled. Pleasantries aside, allow me to instruct you on what you must do next. If you accomplish this, the great demon Mammon will rain gold and silver upon all of you, and for you, Kisu, your curse will be lifted, said Rose. The powerful demon had taken a deep breath and whispered as not to be heard. As she spoke, the room pulsed with heat and a sharp hum. Then a deep black smoke seething with a demonic presence filled the room. As it consumed Kisu's tools, a dread fell over them, particularly Gumi, who had curled up in a corner sobbing, as her body convulsed. The demon Mary Rose lifted her hand, and a whirlwind swirled around the room, which gathered up the dark black smoke and rounded it right above the palm of her hand. The smoke had compressed into what looked to be a solid obsidian ball. Moving her hand away, the ball hung in the air by some ill-felt invisible force. Kisu, this is my demonic gift, Yearning's Prayer. By looking into this ethereal darkness, it will show what must be done to step toward the fate desired, Rose said, staring at the unheavenly black crystal. Kisu walked up and peered through the glistening orb and into the eternal darkness within. What is this? Kisu asked. It was words. Words were flashing into his mind. Do you see them? Rose asked. Yes, I see them. This is the demon language. Despite my studies, I can't read it. Kisu said in a pragmatic fashion. Of course, you can't read it, because as a human, you're worthless, par the tick, so since you can't do it, I'll tell you what must be done to secure my contractor's fate, Rose said, puffing out her chest in pride. Rose's eyes looked up and down as if reading an invisible scroll. In this country, in the town of Eden, amongst the family Seoris is the one who holds a blessing. This is the rightful king according to the eternal fire of life. Should the destined take the throne, Samiel will be shamed along with his rule. This is your job, Kisu. Kill the one that threatens your new king. As long as you stay focused on this task, I will supply you with Mammon's blessing and the possessed to do your bidding, said Mary Rose. Kisu dropped to one knee. Let my master know I am his loyal vassal. In 10 months from now, we will reach Eden and slaughter the entire Seoris house. Kisu's words had no sense of doubt, which satisfied Mary Rose, who ready to take her leave. I shall let my contractor know, said the demon. Then she vanished.
World facts. Contracting the help of any spiritual intelligence above that of a human is considered taboo amongst all nations, and an agreement has been put in place to destroy any research that might lead to such a contract from taking place. It is believed that if such powers once again intermingle with the affairs of men, that humans in their limited capacity would be no more than pets or pests to such otherworldly entities, just as it was in times of old. We are with limit and they are not.
I had to shave my hair off. Not because something sticky had fallen in it, or a dislike for it, but because hair can hint at one's potential magical abilities. It wasn't something that could tell you if someone had a magical talent or not, or if they could use it or not. But it was a good way to tell if they were born with an ability, or had made a contract with a living concept. Don't ask me what a living concept is though, because I don't know. There are not many jinn that I know of in Pembroke to begin with, and I'm definitely not one of them. I was born with a mastery that was given the name Emajinn, or at least I probably was. If I was, that would make me an Emajinn. There's nothing really special about that title. It just means I have a mastery associated with the king's house. My biological family had used breeding practices to tap into the face of the deep and draw out the spirit of the material world, which apparently looks like water, but the water could float, so it definitely wasn't water. Well, maybe you could say it was, but it would be like saying that syrup was honey. Another difference from that stuff running through streams was the person who had summoned the extra special water would become intimately linked with it. Linking arms with Emajinn on a romantic date was out of the question, but it felt like another body part. Maybe like growing a third arm. I'm not quite sure how it might feel, though I want to find out. But depending on the individual's talent and magical power, this new extraordinary member of the body could potentially create anything in existence, I guess. However, the current standard output for a soldier using Emajinn was to control the gravity-defying water, forming it into a simple shape using the mind, and then with magical energy, transform that hovering watery shape to mud or stone. Though only highly skilled Emajinn users could make the leap from dirt to rock, maybe even a number so low it didn't exist at all. After all, I've never actually seen anyone do such a thing, but despite never seeing it, I have faith that such skilled individuals exist. If you're wondering how long it might take to make such a leap according to hearsay, no one knows. If such an ability actually existed though, it might take a few months or years. Really, however long it would take would be dependent on your own magical energy and the amount of time you put towards learning to surpass the large obstacle of creating only a little mud, or so I've been told. However, if you did work to learn Emajinn, one could call the end result amazing. This unique power could be used as an all-purpose magical item, or in other words, the potential creation of anything as long as you had the skill, knowledge, and imagination. Having access to the original building blocks of everything in existence was truly a frightening ability. Even if you were only able to create a sword because of lack of skill, when you considered it would mean the reality of the phrase, become one with the blade, it can't be understated that there would be something both manly and poetic about that, but this is magic. So this oneness wasn't simply poetic license, it was possible. I think with this knowledge it's easy to grasp what made the Blood Dragon bloodline powerful, well, as long as the members had a little magical energy. Unless everything I've heard is just propaganda to keep the monarchy in power. I should know, I'm one of the king's children, but I'm not a prince and I have never met the king. If it does exist, I don't know how it works and I don't know how much magical energy I have or if I truly have the ability to summon Emajinn or not. I really have tried to use magical items but I just can't seem to figure out how to use magical energy. I know I would have learned but I left the Blood Dragon family as a baby. It's not like I grabbed a sack and walked out the door, no, I was given away. Some might see this as lucky and others as unlucky, but when you factor in that I was the king's youngest son and it would have been my job to fight in battle, after battle until I died, I'm pretty happy to be alive. Those battles would have been on the pretext that it was for the honor of the king's house, but everyone knows that's not the real reason the king would send his younger boy to war. The truth was a tradition that at some point turned into law, if I had to guess, which I don't. Those old, half-dead council members had forced my father's hand, so that they wouldn't have to worry about my older brother and I fighting for the throne. It was a play for greater unity amongst themselves. Considering I escaped that thanks to my father and my now new father, it's pretty obvious I was given a chance at life. In other words, this was a gift that I needed to cherish and not take it lightly. So, that's why I have to cut, pluck and remove my precious red hair. ***** World Facts. People that use contractual magic are called jinn. If a jinn is referencing themselves to the contract they have formed, they may add that before the title in Nerian or the common dialect. For instance, Fire Jinn, Wind Jinn, and Life Jinn are all possible references to the type of contractual magic someone might use. A razor's blade slid across a man's scalp and removed the small shoots of hair that had started to grow. The maid who performed the harvest wiped the red strands off the blade and onto a towel. She had long orange hair that nearly touched the floor and a painted-on smile that seemed permanently fixed. Her name was Bliss, a maid who worked for the Seoris family. "All done," said Bliss, placing the axe-shaped razor into a bowl beside her. Eli placed a black wig on his head. This was the same routine he had been putting up with since he could grow hair. Neither of his current parents had red hair. Well, step-parents, but the public didn't know that. "Thank you as always, Bliss," Eli said. Bliss had given a bow in response. "It's my joy to be of help, but I like how thoughtful you are," said Bliss happily. "Well yeah, you're always taking your time from your other chores to help me with this, so it's the least I can do. By the way, what do you think of the new wig? Does it look good on me?" Yes, your wig, your head, and your body are developing nicely. If you were to put 'em all together, they'd make you a handsome young man. What a weird way to word things, it feels like she's implying that my head comes off just as easy as my wig. Was that a subtle way of calling me brainless? Well, even if it was, she called me handsome, so maybe I shouldn't overthink it, Eli thought. Alright, now it's your turn. How do I look? Bliss asked. Her orange hair spiraled around her when she gave a quick spin on one foot. Wait, this feels like a trap. Won't she use what I say right now to tease me later? Something like, guess what, Eli called me cute today. Actually, knowing her, she'd probably embellish it and say it was borderline sexual harassment. Real sexual harassment would be me saying something like, I bet your boobs would fit perfectly in my hands, but for Bliss, a compliment would be distorted into the same thing in the retelling. Platonically, from the point of a monk with no worldly desires, you're a beautiful woman. And my figure. Well, I bet your boobs would fit perfectly in my hands, well, from the perspective of a monk. What am I saying? Yes, that is what I was thinking of her voluptuous figure a second ago, but that was what I was absolutely not supposed to say. Well, I'm glad it's from the perspective of a monk because I'm not a pedophile. With how much you tease me, I seriously have my doubts, but I promise to change my mind as long as you don't tell anyone about this. Bliss squeaked in laughter. It's fun to see you blush, but I think I've had enough fun, so I'll let you off the hook today. Thank you, and as promised, I won't think of you as an older woman with a proclivity towards younger men. Also, I'm about to meet with Demetrius, and I'm sure if I had this on my mind, I wouldn't be able to focus at all. Oh, another match. Which of you challenged who this time? I took the initiative. I still haven't beaten him, but I do feel a bit stronger now, so I think this time might be different. Don't be in too much of a rush. Demetrius is quite a bit older than you. The fact that you're a close match for him now probably scares him, and if you overtake him, it might hurt his pride. If I overtake him, wouldn't it be because of his lack of practice? Well, I don't know about that, Eli. Sometimes people are just born with talent. Sure, it is up to the talented to utilize their talent, but as long as they do, someone born with that gift will always surpass someone without it. For instance, Demetrius is far smarter than you, and I can't imagine that ever changing. That settles it. She really was calling me brainless earlier. I really wish I wouldn't have heard that. I don't think I'll recover from today. In fact, if we were fighting, that would have been the finishing move. I didn't say you weren't smart, you're just not capable of mental gymnastics like him. I'm pretty sure I'm developing an inferiority complex. Wait, no, I probably already have one. You are the least talented member of your family as of now, but I do think you'll overtake him when it comes to the sword. Just stay humble and remember, both of you probably won't be the best in the world at anything. What will make you great isn't what you're good at, but your tenacity and ability to rely on others. That's kind of profound. You know, sometimes I feel like I learn more from you than my own father. Maybe you should be considered the wisest in all of Pembroke. Is that a title your father holds? Well, it is only because your father has given me this position in his manner that I am able to share any advice, so that reflects on his brilliance too. Eli had thought this kind of reply seemed far too humble, but since she did work for the house as a maid, this must have been part of the etiquette towards her employer. If that's the case, I can't really argue. I have a lot of respect for my father. I know all too well about his flaws. It is because of his shortcomings that I can find him to be an unbelievably inspiring person. Even if we aren't related by blood, we are related by values, though I admit, I am just riding on his coattail. Wow, how lovely. Do not most of the kids your age talk about how they're going to leave home or how much better they are than everyone else? Is that really a stereotype? I think it's far too simplistic. Everything usually has a root at its base, and that description just sounds like someone with a troubled home life. I still think it's pretty common. Maybe most parents get tougher on their kids around your age in hopes that the aggravation will drive them out of the house. Yikes, that doesn't sound like really solid parenting, does it? I mean, that would definitely cause resentment. I really must be lucky. Well, maybe not, you do have an inferiority complex after all. Yeah, I definitely have to beat Demetrius in the sword. Otherwise, I'll never have anything I can outperform him in. Bliss gave Eli a small applause. You're quite competitive, aren't you, Eli? I guess boys will be boys, but if you really eclipse Demetrius, let him occasionally win so you don't completely destroy his pride as an older brother. That sounds a little dishonest, but if I wear myself out enough before facing him, I might be able to ensure he gets a win or two. Well, I better head that way and thank you. ***. The city of Eden was entirely unique in Pembroke. It was as if the division line between the upper and lower classes didn't exist. Justice was also handled as fairly as possible, by short-term judges. In this city a rich man had even been executed for the murder of a farmer's wife. It was true that Lord Seorus's estate was in the center of the city, where it would be safest from attack. Though beside him were people of all types, including giants who were generally slaves. Of course, some had paid for freedom ending up in Eden. It was because of the novelty of fairness that the city had attracted people of all types, and allowed them to innovate together. It was the meeting of these different cultures and people that made Eli excited to one day leave the city he grew up in. Eli ran by the edge of the road, just barely on the tidy cobblestone street. His pace was too fast for a boy his age. Surely if he were to make contact with anyone at his speed and size, ill fortune would befall both of them. Eli was undeterred by this fact though, because he had confidence in the footwork that he was constantly drilling. He even believed his ability to avoid running into others might be on par with talented martial artists, though he didn't know for sure. Normally he would have taken his horse, but today a merchant caravan had come in, making it faster for him to leave